All right, let's talk about AWS WAF, the Web Application Firewall. Now, I know that name sounds super technical, maybe a little intimidating, but we're going to demystify it. By the end of this, you're just going to think of it as a digital bouncer for your application. So let's go meet this bouncer and figure out exactly how it works. So think about it. If you run any kind of popular website or online service, you have a front door. And that front door is constantly getting hammered by, well, all sorts of traffic you don't want. Bots, scrapers, attackers, you name it. So the big question is, how do you actually guard that door against all these digital threats? And that right there is where AWS WAF comes into play. Honestly, the best way to understand it is to just forget the jargon for a minute. Just get this picture in your head. A really smart, programmable bouncer standing right at the entrance of your app. Their entire job is to check out everyone trying to get in and decide, are you a friend or are you a foe? Okay, so you have this bouncer, but how do they know who to let in and who to, gently escort out? They need instructions. They need a rulebook. And in the world of AWS WAF, that rulebook is called a Web Access Control List, or as you'll usually hear it, a Web ACL. The Web ACL is basically that binder. It's the container that holds every single rule your bouncer needs to follow. It is the master policy, the single source of truth for all of those security decisions. Nothing, and I mean nothing, happens without being checked against this rulebook first. And just like a real bouncer stands right at the front door, you attach this Web ACL, this rulebook, to the main entry points of your application. That could be your CloudFront distribution, maybe your application load balancer, or your API gateway. This is the front line. This is where your bouncer gets to work. So let's crack open that rulebook and take a look inside. What are the actual rules? What specifically is our bouncer looking for, and what are they even allowed to do when they find it? This is key. Every single rule inside WAF is really simple. It's made of two fundamental parts. First, you've got the condition. That's just the matching logic, or in plain English, what to look for. And second, you've got the action. That's the consequence, or what to do when you find it. It's really just a simple statement. If you see this, then do that. So what's on this checklist? Well, the conditions can get super specific. Our bouncer can check a visitor's ID, which is like their source IP address or where they're coming from geographically. They can look for suspicious things like malicious SQL code. They can even read the request to look for certain words, notice if someone's trying to get in way too fast, that's a high request rate, or even spot behavior that just looks, well, bot-like. So the bouncer finds a match. Now what do? Well, they've got three main moves. They can allow the request. Yep, you're on the list, come on in. They can block it. Sorry, you're not getting past me. Or, and this is super clever, they can count it. This is like letting someone in, but making a note and keeping a really close eye on them. Okay, so we've got a rule book, and it's filled with all these condition-action pairs. But in what order does our bouncer check them? I mean, a request could match multiple rules, right? This brings us to the most critical piece of WAF logic there is, the evaluation process. It's all about priority. And this shows you exactly how it works. A request arrives. WAF looks at rule number 1. Let's say it's allow traffic from the office IP. Is it a match? Nope. Okay, move on. Next, it evaluates rule number 2. Block any request that looks like a SQL injection attack. Is that a match? Yes, it is. So WAF immediately executes the block action. And this is so important. The evaluation stops right there. It doesn't even look at rules 3, 4, or 5. This right here is the golden rule of AWS WAF. If you only remember one thing, remember this. The rules in your Web ACL are checked in order, from top to bottom. And the very first rule that matches a request, that one wins. It dictates the final outcome, period. Now, understanding that first match wins idea is one thing, but seeing what happens when you get it wrong, that's something else entirely. The order of your rules isn't just some small detail. It is the absolute foundation of your entire security setup. Just look at this, a tale of two different rulebooks. On the left, you've got a risky order. Rule number 1 says allow all traffic from the USA. Rule number 2 says block known malicious IPs. So what happens if an attacker, using a known malicious IP address, sends a request from within the USA? Well, the answer is simple, and it's pretty scary, because first match wins. The request matches that allow from USA rule first, and it gets waived right on in. It never even gets checked against the block list. But the safe order on the right, it flips it. It checks for bad guys first, and then it checks for friends. So the crucial point here, order is absolutely everything. Now remember that third action, count? Well, this is its superpower. Putting a new rule in count mode is like giving your bouncer a new instruction, but telling them, hey, for now, don't actually block anyone based on this new rule. Just keep a list for me. Make a note of everyone who would have been blocked and let me know. This lets you safely test the impact of a new rule without accidentally blocking your legitimate customers. It's a lifesaver. All right, we have covered a ton of ground here. Let's just boil everything we learned from our digital bouncer down into a few key essential takeaways. Okay, here's your cheat sheet. First, the web ACL. That's the main rulebook. Second, every rule inside has a condition, what to look for, and an action, what to do. Third, evaluation is always top-down, which means the first match wins. And because of that, fourth, your rule order is beyond critical. And finally, remember to use count mode to test out your new rules safely before you actually turn them on. So, we'll end with this thought. You now get the logic, you get the priorities, and you know the potential pitfalls. You know how the bouncer thinks. So, if you were handed a completely blank rulebook for your own application right now, what would be the very first rule you'd write down?